So with your animated image, we are going to take that and we're going to bring it into Unity and we're going to see how we're going to set this up. So I'm going to open up my desktop. I'm going to take the health sheet that I just created and just drag and drop it in like the previous one. So I can click on it, I'll drag it in here to create a game object, and we will see how that image was brought in. So it has laid it out exactly as I said. It has done it with the columns and the rows, whatever you picked when you were exporting it back out. So we need to figure out how we're going to play this. All right, how we're going to get this play as individual frames, or how can we use individual frames out of this image as sprites? It's actually all going to take place with the actual texture import that we're going to set up. So with my image selected, there is one or two little bits in the inspector we can investigate. So one, we have a sprite mode that is set to single. So that is telling Unity that the image that we have imported in is one single image. It doesn't contain multiple stuff. So we've got to change that. Another bit that we're interested in is the sprite editor button, which is where we're going to set up how Unity knows how to split it up. And there's also the apply button that we're going to have to use to kind of set some of our changes. So I'm going to click from single down to multiple. I'll click apply. You see that it's disappeared there. That's okay, just because we haven't set anything up. I'm now going to go into the image selected health sheet with my sprite editor, and we need to slice this guy. So there is a slice option right up the top here. Okay, there's going to be 3 different modes in it that Unity provided to help us to do it. There's an automatic, which I'm pretty sure is not going to work for us starting off here. There's like a classical kind of way of doing it, which is by your cell count. And this is what we're interested in. So remember, our images are perfect squares of white at the very edges, so they're very, very tightly packed together. So Unity's going to have a hard time picking out the individual ones. It likes transparency to be able to do that. So what we have to do here is just tell us, hey, how many columns and rows there are. Well, there's 4 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there is 4 rows. So it's just going to take that image and divide it. So I'll go slice, and you'll kind of think nothing's happened, but over here we have this little button with the color icon on it. You can click on it, and of course, because it's so jam-packed, it won't work, but we can see by clicking on each one of these here that we're getting the individual frames out of it. Okay. So it has split that image up for us. We'll see later on when we create images with transparency, it'll be a little bit more useful. So I'm going to click on apply, and that's it, we're done. We can close that sprite editor down. Now what's happened here, if I expand my health sheet and compare it to health that was just above it, there's a big difference here. I can now see all the individual frames that were in that image been saved here, so we can actually use those. I can drag in those as individual images, so you can have different stuff going on in each one, and that's no problem at all. Okay, so it works just like we had previously. Of course, I'm going to my game view. Even if you click on play, they won't animate or anything. Okay, we're going to have to set up this animation. Yeah, nothing. So in order to do the animation, it's going to be a pretty straightforward purpose. So we want to select all the frames you want to be included in that animation. Now I want all of them. So I'm going to select the first one. I'm going to hold my shift key. I'm going to left click on the last one, and that's going to select everything in between. So I'm going to drag that in. And now Unity is going to ask us, hey, you're bringing in multiple frames of an image. You're creating an animation. We have to create an animation for this. So give it a name. So if I go health underscore anim. So health anim. We're going to save it. And we're going to see that that is it over here. So I'm just going to move some of these guys out of the way, and I'm going to scale this guy up to be nice and big. So it looks like it's a static image, but we're going to click on play, and we're going to see our animation play out. Two things we want to take note of before moving on is that while it did all that animation stuff for us, it actually added in 2 files for us here. One of them is going to contain information about the frames that we've selected and whether or not you should loop this animation. And then the other file is set up how that controls how that animation is actually played. So by default, an animation will just play whatever you've kind of set to it, but we can change that dynamically through code or to whatever way we like later on. So kind of think about if you're shooting an enemy, you want the enemy to show some sort of damage been taken at certain points. We would play another animation maybe that shows them crouching down or falling down or a death animation or a jump animation. We'll drive that kind of stuff through code as we get a little bit more advanced in it. So that is our introduction to kind of Unity. We've gone through the user interface, the scene, the game, hierarchy, inspector. We looked at our assets folder briefly down the bottom here. We had created some game objects. Remember, the key thing about them is they have a tag associated with them. They have components, so all game objects are the same. The only difference is the components that are assigned to them. We always have a transformation, so where we are, how we're rotated, and what our scale of that object in the actual game world is. We then introduced a sprite component, which allowed us to pick an image, and we were able to then change the color of it. We can change the image however we like while the game is running. We then created a static image in paint.net, brought that in, seen how we could import the stuff, set up in our scene, scale it to all the bits that we wanted, created our animated sprites in Piskel, exported that out, brought it in, set up our sprites to be done as a multiple frames in one single image, and then set up our animation to kind of play from that. And that's a wrap up for that.